This is Michael Popok, Legal AF. Well, when you let your party be hijacked by a depraved, mendacious, lying narcissist who believes that Second Amendment rights are unlimited and is in favor of high-capacity magazines and uses violent vitriol and rhetoric and aims it at Supreme Court justices and other people he considers to be his enemy, you get a shooting out in front of a Supreme Court justice's house. Justice Sotomayor had a security detail, as they are now required to have, mainly because of the environment that we now live in, the society we now live in, because Donald Trump gives license to people to act on their worst instincts. And because he makes and calls the enemy of the people the liberal progressive justices on the United States Supreme Court. I mean, this isn't the Pelican Brief, a movie from the 1980s or 90s. This is real life. Supreme Court justices' lives are in danger, especially on the left. And now we've got a brazen carjacking attempt where a U.S. Marshal, who, thank God, was sitting out in front of Justice Sotomayor's house in where she's located, was able to pull out his service revolver and shoot the attempted carjacker several times, disabling him, but not killing him. That guy, who's an 18-year-old Kendrick Flowers, was brought to the hospital alive and has now been charged with attempted carjacking, and because he also had a high-capacity magazine attached to his handgun, which is also illegal. And so I want to kind of bring all this together because the Republicans on the other side of the aisle like to talk about these things as just anecdotes. They have no real-world consequences. When there's a school shooting and more than 20 children, toddlers, and their teachers trying to protect them are shot and killed, that's a false flag event. That didn't happen. That's like 9/11. That was an inside job. Jan 6th, that was an inside job led by government informants and FBI agents. That couldn't happen on American soil. Donald Trump knows that he has been giving license and permission to those in our society who have ripped up the social contract and are now just unhinged, weaponized, activated as a sleeper cell for Donald Trump and willing to go after FBI agents, Supreme Court justices, and the like. So far, we have avoided blood being spilt. It was just a few years ago that Gabby Giffords, who was running for Senate as a congresswoman, was shot in the head during a campaign event. Federal judges and their families just got attacked in the last 2 years, right? There's a dead husband of a federal judge because he had the misfortune of opening the front door and facing a Trumper who fired his weapon. Same thing happened recently with, whenever Donald Trump sends out a bat signal to his cult followers, bad things happen. He calls law enforcement and the FBI agents, he says and claims falsely, in a defamatory way, in a way to gin up violent responses and to stop the peaceful transfer of power and to deny the new election even before it even happens. And what happens as a result? Well, we know what happens. The Department of Justice Special Counsel's Office just listed it all to Judge Aileen Cannon in Fort Pierce in South Florida. She wanted to know, well, what is the list of things that have happened since Donald Trump opens his mouth at rallies on social media and goes after judges and FBI agents? Because Donald Trump claims that the FBI, working with the Department of Justice, working with Merrick Garland, working with Joe Biden, are operating assassination squads to try to kill Donald Trump and his family. From Barron, I was a little Barron, from Barron to Melania and everybody in between at Mar-a-Lago when they executed the search warrant. He says they weren't trying to execute the search warrant, they were trying to execute me. Because the FBI agents, like the U.S. Marshals in front of Justice Sotomayor's house, are appropriately armed. They're on duty. They also knew that Donald Trump wasn't going to be at Mar-a-Lago in August. Let me explain South Florida, having lived there for 20 years, in August. Unless you have to live there, you don't live there. And Donald Trump always decamps for Bedminster, his other location in New Jersey, his other golf course that he lives in as a grift. He always does that around March or April when things get really heated in Florida. The FBI, it wasn't a random day they picked. They coordinated with Donald Trump's lawyers, with his staff, okay, with the Secret Service detail. They knew that Donald Trump and nobody who had Trump as a last name were there, but that hasn't stopped Donald Trump trying to put a giant a set of gun sights and crosshairs on the back of the FBI. And the FBI just had an occasion, and it was listed in Jack Smith's filing, where they had to shoot and kill a Trumper because they went to execute an arrest warrant related to his threats of assassination against Joe Biden and other people, and he had a weapon, and they had to take him out. That just happened, along with 10 or 12 other examples that when Donald Trump speaks and calls judges, their staff, their family, FBI agents, prosecutors, attorney generals, people of color that are prosecuting him, when he calls them out and says, if you come after me, I'll come after you, bad things happen. Today, it's a carjacking in front of a justice's house that require U.S. Marshal intervention. Tomorrow, it is worse. It's a powder being mailed to somebody's house. It's a bomb being mailed to somebody's house. We have had that we have had assassinations of federal and state judges and prosecutors and FBI agents, and it's only increased that atmosphere because of Donald J. Trump. And yet, he stands atop the only other party in this country. People forget what the GOP stood for. Literally. The grand old party, the party of Lincoln, that's what we're watching? I mean, I'm not a Republican, but that's the other party? At least I had respect for the other party because we could have a coherent conversation about gun rights, reproductive rights, civil rights, LGBTQ rights, diversity rights, voting rights, immigration policy. It's no longer. It takes two to tango. You got to have coherent, legitimate, authentic party on the other side. And we don't. And everybody says, I just heard somebody say in my life recently, well, we didn't have any wars under Trump. As if the reason Putin decided, which he does every 10 years, to try to take new territory over is because Joe Biden is in the White House. Or that's the reason Hamas attacked Israel. Total BS. Total BS. You can't control the timing of third-party events around the world. Sure, we're the world's policemen. Okay, but this isn't Minority Report. We can't stop crime and wars before they happen. And so those same people that blame Biden for the wars won't take responsibility for all of the bad things and bloodshed that's happening in our streets, in school shootings, in church shootings. You can't be safe anywhere right now, right? Because we got a guy, the tone from the top of the Republican Party is, it's okay. Punch that guy. Take that guy out of here. Everybody's, bad people there's good people inside of bad people. Proud Boys stand back and stand by. Project 2025, never heard of it. Proud Boys never heard of it. And that party is willing to accept this. Right? And so where does it lead? Inexorably, it leads to shootings and attempted carjackings of United States Supreme Court justices' cars in broad daylight. And I want to put out the warning now that it could likely get worse. Threats of assassination against Judge Engoron in New York went up exponentially and still are, so much so that the Department of Public Safety in New York has its hands full trying to protect the judge, his family, who got called out by name by Donald Trump, his wife, who got called out by name, his principal law clerk, who got called out by name. Just same thing for Judge Merchan, who's about to sentence Donald Trump in September, his daughter. I mean, even on TV and in the movies, organized crime and the mafia had a code. They didn't go after civilians. They didn't go after the wives. They didn't go after the family. They didn't go after the daughters. That crossed the line. Watch The Sopranos. Watch The Godfather. They don't do that. Watch Wise Guys, right? But Donald Trump, anything to get elected. He'll do and say anything, and that is the tone from the top that then seeps into the water supply and ends up with carjackings, attempted attacks on federal judges, crazed Trumpers showing up with hammers in hand to attack and assassinate Nancy Pelosi when they can't find her, hammering her husband's head and almost killing him at the age of 80. And then none of the Republican leadership, is there any? That's almost rhetorical. Is there any Republican leadership? I haven't seen it. They're all kowtowing and cowering in the corner while Daddy Trump comes home on another alcoholic bender threatening to beat the family. That's what we're watching. It's an abusive relationship between Donald Trump and the Republican Party and its so-called leadership. It is. Daddy, don't beat me. That's what we're watching. And if it wasn't so impactful to the rest of our lives, I wouldn't care. If that's the devil's bargain you want to make, the Christian right, the Trumpers, the MAGA, the women in that party, if that's the devil's bargain you want to make because he's doing something else that you like, then just call it out for what it is. But it's an abusive relationship. It's a codependent abusive relationship. If it was a couple, you would send the police over and break it up and send somebody to jail and take somebody else to a home for their protection. And so if we can ever see leadership stop cowering, if people like Nikki Haley, who got, I guess, disinvited from the convention, but she can't find the balls to come out against Donald Trump again because he may win. All the people that at first voted against Donald Trump and tried to censure him and impeach him and call him for what he is, an insurrectionist on Jan 6th, where are they today? Mitch McConnell, where is he? He's in a closet somewhere. He's Weekend at Bernie. They trot him out whenever they need him. But he's not standing up to Trump any longer because there's a chance he could win. And they want to stay in power. That's the oligarchy. They're invested in Donald Trump winning. And they don't care how many innocent victims are trashed or killed along the way. That's the party we're watching. It's easy to gin up anger and fear. It's hard to run a campaign on hope and achievement, which is what we're watching, this battle of black and white, of dark and light. It's all we're watching. So when I see a story like an attempted carjacking of Justice Sotomayor, I get the story, but then I got to go deeper and I got to make the connections and connect the dots and the connective tissue here. And we do it right here on the MeidasTouch Network and on Legal AF. I do this kind of podcasting, this kind of legal and political analysis, things at the intersection of law and politics, Wednesdays and Saturdays at 8 p.m. Eastern Time. There we go. There's a smile. Right here on the MeidasTouch Network, and help them get the 3 million free subscribers. The bigger that network is, the more your voice is heard. This is an independent network without outside investors. You want to help? Watch the videos. Leave a thumbs up. Watch the videos all the way to the end. It tells the algorithmic gods you want this content coming to you on a regular basis. Listen to it later. Pick us up on all audio podcast platforms for Legal AF. Watch our videos. Participate in the live chat. We get 20,000 people during live chat in the dead of summer. And we appreciate all of it. And then we got a Patreon for those that want to learn about the law at the intersection of law and politics from people that know what they're talking about. Go to patreon.com/legalaf. Patreon.com/legalaf. So until my next hot take, till my next Legal AF, this is Michael Popok, fired up and ready to go. Heary, heary, Legal AF Law Breakdown is now in session. Go beyond the headlines and get a deep dive into the important legal concepts you need to know and we discuss every day on Legal AF. Exclusive content you won't find anywhere else, all for the price of a couple of cups of coffee. Join us at patreon.com/legalaf. That's patreon.com/legalaf.